right, so I'm currently on the phone with John. He's another one of the musicians that reached out to me about the interview series. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the chance to introduce himself.
Hey there. So my name is John Masingill, originally from Alabama, currently based in the greater Orlando, Florida metro, playing with right now one primary project, Cobalt 27, kind of a 90s based group here in town, and just kind of moonlighting with some other bands, helping out where I can, doing fill-in jobs, and just trying to make music where I can.
Awesome. Very cool. I always like to start in the beginning with these interviews. Why don't you give me some detail about, when you first found music? What about it was attractive to you and really pulled you in?
So I was the weird kid, like growing up, even pre-K and elementary school. Like I wasn't really a talker, but when music came on, like for some reason I was just screaming at the top of my lungs, and I was somewhat accurate with pitch. I mean, as close as you can get at age 4. And it was just kind of one of those, it was something that I naturally connected to. And I started doing piano when I was first grade, about 6 years old. And it was just one of those, I enjoyed the music, but I hated the practice.
Sure.
And I did choir all the way up, and, church choirs, school choirs, you name it. And it was kind of one of those, I always gravitated towards the stuff that I heard on the radio. That it was the stuff that I could sing along to, piano. It was a lot of classical stuff. Mm. And looking back, I learned a lot more than I thought I did at the time. In fact, once I picked up guitar in high school, and that kind of, catapulted some things for me. But it was funny, from about junior high, 7th, 8th grade until I got into 9th, I hated anything to do with piano. Once I grabbed the guitar, it made me jump back on piano and start rerunning that theory and how do all of the pieces go together, because now I'm not learning some scale that I was supposed to because Bach put it in some symphony, 100 years ago. It's finally relating to the stuff that I want to hear. So that was always, looking back, that's always been sort of an aha moment for me, if you will.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of that musical influence you have drove you to learn guitar.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. It's between choir and, and I did church choirs and school choirs and things. So learned a lot of theory there, and then piano. But it's between all of that is where I sort of developed more of a classical foundation, if you will, so you hear about the classically trained or what have you. So it's it built a foundation that I didn't realize what I was learning until I picked up the guitar, and that's what put all the pieces together.
Sure. So I apologize there. I kind of skipped ahead. Your fundamental basis that you learned on was piano, and then that led you to other instrumentation.
Correct.
Okay.
But it wasn't until I picked up a rhythm acoustic guitar that I, started strumming and putting everything together. So you're right. It all kind of, guitar was sort of the lock to open that door, if you will.
Sure. And, that's a pretty common pathway as well. Learning theory and crafting on piano and then bring that guitar. In a lot of instances, it kind of makes sense to do that. But I've found that, moving from piano to guitar, you're kind of opening a whole new box.
It just, the way everything is laid out, on a piano, for me, it was all linear, and I couldn't find, yes, it's all laid out in octaves, but it didn't make sense to me until the guitar neck and actually putting chords together and, learning chord patterns and learning, what all is in what key and transpositions and all that. Then I learned not to play piano, but how to use the piano as a tool.
Sure.
To get me to where I wanted to go with the other instruments.
Okay. And so once you kind of were at that level where you were comfortable playing instruments, what were kind of your next steps there? Did you imagine the garage band type scenario, or did you have another outlet?
So at that point, believe it or not, just I'm originally from Alabama, so it is the Bible Belt, and we do get that name for a reason. So in many cases, I was the worship leader. I was leading for the big church. I was leading for youth praise bands. And so I kind of at that point kind of stepped into that lead worshiper, praise and worship guy, where I was sort of the front man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had at least somewhat of the vocal chops. I'm not going to say that I was great and wonderful, but
Mm-hmm.
apparently somebody thought I was good enough to give me a microphone. So that with the acoustic, it just kind of, put all the pieces together, and, we were able to, make some good music. And
Mm-hmm.
I was able to do that all through high school, all through college. And even I got in some academic trouble at one point. I had to leave college for a bit. And I ended up doing that for about 3 years as my primary job.
Okay. And then, so it sounds like you didn't necessarily go the secular route, and you were more into the church circuit. Was there much opportunity for you to craft your own original music participating in that scene?
So as a musician, if I were to say that there was one area that I feel I'm truly lacking, I hate saying it, I don't feel like I'm a creative. Like I'm the guy, I'm the human jukebox.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can play along with whatever's there. I can recreate whatever's there. But creating originals has never been something that has spoken to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of one of those taking the building blocks, the songs that were already there, and being able to craft those together to be able to tell a story. Worship service where you got, song A, song B, you're going into a prayer. Song C, you're going into this, and being able to get those transitions so that it was an even flow in telling that story.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to have more of a creative outlet there for the transitions than creating music from nothing. It was more creating a story from the music that was already there.
Okay. So I've had it suggested to me before about people that were into, the church music and like the mega church rock band type things that, in that scene of the music industry, a lot of the songs are kind of just passed around and everybody plays them. Has that been your experience?
It was, I was always looking for what has my church not done, at the church that I was at that time. What has my church not done
Mm-hmm.
that I could bring in from somewhere else?
Okay.
Whether it was, from the Passion Group, whether it was from Hillsong, whether it was, all of these different groups, even admittedly, like I'm kind of a music nut, and I've since moved away from churches. So but in all cases, I always kind of went a little bit older.
Mm-hmm.
So even like when I was in the church realm, looking back at the Gaithers, the Maranatha, going back into like the old school stuff, even into some of the old gospel stuff, because there's going to be a group within your congregation that's going to grab a hold of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I moved into secular stuff, I'm still doing the rock stuff, and I'm sure we'll talk about this down the line.
Mm-hmm.
But still reaching back into the 50s and the 60s and all that to grab some of that influence to be able to bring into your new stuff, even as you are playing songs that already exist within the secular realm as well.
Okay, so let's move into the secular stuff that you're kind of into. You mentioned that you're currently beginning to work in that avenue. Give me some detail about what you're working on.
Yeah, so my current primary project is a group called Cobalt 27 based here in Orlando, Florida. We got together about a year and a half ago. Most of the members of the band I've played with for about 4 or 5 years, just in different projects. Actually, one of the guys I've known for about 10 years. But we rebranded. Our most recent project broke up during the pandemic as everybody was shuffling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we found an amazing singer, James Baker. And so we've been doing this for about a year and a half since everything started to open up here in Florida. And it's very 90s, very Pearl Jam, very Foo Fighters.
Mm-hmm.
But even there, we've got, some 70s influence. Like we've got some old school Rush in there. We've got, Neil Young, Keep on Rocking in the Free World. So still being able to bring that 90s flair to some of the older stuff as well. And, also trying to bring some of like the Motown harmonies to some of the new stuff and find different ways to play there vocally as well.
Sure, sure. So, you mentioned that you're out there playing shows and stuff. Are you guys currently recording it all, or are you just like looking to book shows right now?
Yeah, right now it's all live based. I mean, we are, of course, you're always recording, trying to create new promos, things like that, but we're not really doing much in the original realm yet. Usually, at least in our experience, it seems to be that the business model works better where you create more of a following with covers, and then you're able to introduce some originals that you may have, which our guitarist Matt Willie, I'm hoping he'll listen to this as well, but he's an amazing songwriter. He's a little bit more modern rock than what our band currently plays, and I
Hmm.
feel that's good to have kind of multiple influences there. But hoping to use some of his songwriting to be able to create originals for Cobalt 27 down the line, but not there yet.
Okay. So right now you're conceptually getting ready to start recording, but for the moment you're just looking to book shows and playing gigs and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, we actually just got done. Bike Week was down here in Daytona, Florida, and so we were on one of the main stages there at Full Moon back last Wednesday. So just trying to keep growing onward and upward.
Yeah, it's very cool. So, what are some of the really most important moments and memories that have stood out to you during your time playing music?
So I talked about like no. Let me make sure, just to clarify. Are you asking more about stuff that's happened on stage or in the music realm, or more how did defining moments for me to get me to here?
Sure. Pretty much, it's a very open question. So it's anything that has had an impact on you, whether it was a show that you went to, or a song that you wrote, or a gig that you played. Just things that have had an impact on you to guide you to become the musician you are now.
So, and it's going to sound like the weirdest thing in the world. My friend Catherine, growing up, and we were sixth grade, seventh grade, and she was and is a very talented and accomplished musician in her own right.
Hmm.
Catherine Mountain, easy plug there if anybody wants to check her out. But we were out on our back porch, and it was me and her brother, and me and her brother. I can't remember if anybody else was there. And it's going to sound lame, but Savage Garden's "Truly, Madly, Deeply" came on. But, I'll be a dream, I'll be a vision.
Hmm. Hmm.
And she just started, going off on harmonies and finding all this stuff there, and I had nothing. Like I'd always, doing the lead vocal stuff. I'd always gone melody, and for, from that moment on, and she kind of pointed out, "Hey, dude, can you harmonize? Can what's there?" And I had nothing.
Hmm.
But from that moment on, it made me realize the value that a second vocal line or a third vocal line can have on the overall song. And
Hmm.
so I really like being a guitarist, being with Cobalt 27, I'm bass and I do some other stuff as well. I do some rhythm, I do some keys. But really, my primary instrument, at least in my opinion, is vocals and specifically background vocals.
Hmm.
Having that second line, having that third line, things like that. So that was one of like the, looking back, one of the like high point moments of do I see this is a moment, this is the change, just from that conversation to now, looking back, it's like, hey, I figured it out. I was able to get it. And now it's probably one of, if not the strongest aspects of me musically.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, that's super important is being able to identify what a song needs versus what it's actually written in.
Right.
Awesome. So you did mention some shout outs there, but where can people find the stuff that you're doing and check out your work?
So right now with my group Cobalt 27, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we do have our website as well, k27band.com. So you can definitely check us out on any of those platforms. And then, definitely leave a like, leave a follow as well. We'd love to see everybody out. If you are in the greater Florida area, depending on the gig, we would love to be able to expand beyond Orlando as well if anybody's looking for something close to home.
Awesome. So I always like to give the person that I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last words. So just a message that you want to throw out there that you feel you resonate with.
So the biggest thing for me is always be looking for opportunity, because you never know when some type of an inspiration is going to happen. Whether it was, a conversation with my neighbor at age 12, whether it's you're talking to somebody at a bar and all of a sudden they say, "Oh yeah, I'm having a party somewhere else," or "Oh yeah, no, I just started waiting tables at such and such a bar." Well, that can lead to networking, to your next gig, to a bigger gig. There's always another opportunity there. So always be on the lookout for whatever opportunity may be there, however big or small it may appear at the time.